Chapter 5 Congruent Triangles, Section 5.1 Angles of Triangles. Example 1. Classify triangle ABC by its sides, then determine whether it is a right triangle. So, to do this, to classify this triangle, first we use the distance formula, which is right here, and plug in these values to find the side lengths. So first we can use points A and B, and we can do, so this is the x and y, so we can plug in these values. 7 minus 0 squared plus 1 minus 3 squared. So here we get 7 squared plus negative 2 squared. And after we do this, we get 49 plus 4, which equals 53. So this equals the square root of 53. And then you do the same thing for the other two sides. So now we use the distance formula to find the lengths of these two segments, and we found out that AC, the length of AC is the square root of 17, and from the length of BC is the square root of 40. So because all of these lengths of the triangle are all different, we can determine that this is a scalene triangle. And we can also determine that it is acute. And then we can find the slopes of the segments, and if these segments intersect and they form a 90-degree angle, then it's a right triangle. But after finding out the slopes, the slopes do not equal 1, so they're not perpendicular, which means this triangle is not a right triangle. Example 2. So we need to find the angle measure of angle PQS. So using the exterior angle theorem, we can form the equation 3x plus 25 equals 2x plus 65. And then we can solve for x. So we end up getting x equals 40. And then we plug it back in to this. So 3 times 40 plus 25 equals this angle measure. And this equals 145 degrees. So the measure of angle PQS equals 145. Example 3. The measure of one acute angle of a right triangle is 1.5 times the measure of the other acute angle. find the measure of each acute angle. So we know that one of the angles in a right triangle is equal to 90 degrees, and using the triangle angle theorem, we know that the interior angles of all triangles equals 180 degrees. So using this information, we can subtract 90 from 180 to get 90. So the two acute angles of this right triangle is equal to 90 degrees. And then using this information, we can find the measures of the two acute angles, which are 36 degrees and 54 degrees. Example 4. Complete this proof of the exterior angle theorem by filling in the blanks. So it's given that angle 1 is an exterior angle of the triangle, and we need to prove that the measure of angle 1 equals the measure of angle 2 plus the measure of angle 3. So for A, measure of angle 1 plus measure of angle 4 equals 180 by the linear pair postulate. And this is because these two angles are on this line, and they equal this line, and all lines equal 180 degrees. For B, measure of angle 2 plus measure of angle 3 plus measure of angle 4 equals 180 by the triangle sum theorem. And this theorem states that all the angles, these three angles of the triangle, equal 180 degrees. And that shows it right here, angle 2, 3, and 4. For C, measure of angle 1 plus measure of angle 4 equals measure of angle 2 plus measure of angle 3 plus measure of angle 4 by the substitution property of equality. And so we basically just substituted this here into 180. So we substituted this portion here. For D, measure of angle 1 equals measure of angle 2 plus measure of angle 3 by the subtraction property of equality. And here, measure of angle 4 was subtracted on both sides, so we ended up with this equation. Example 6. In this figure, CDAB, the measure of BCD equals 5x minus 20, and the measure of angle DCA equals 3x minus 2, and CD bisects angle ACB. Find the measure of angle DBF, which is this angle right here. So knowing this information, we know that this segment and this segment forms two right angles right here. And knowing this information right here, we know that these two angles are congruent. But first, we can solve for x knowing that this is a right angle. So 5x minus 20 equals 90. Oh, I read that wrong. I thought this said angle BDC, but it's BCD and DCA. So these two angles are congruent to each other. So we are able to solve for x. So x equals 9. And now we can plug in 9 into this angle right here. So 5 times 9 minus 20 equals 25 degrees. And so now we know this is 25. And using the triangle sum theorem, or the triangle angle theorem, we know that these three angles equal 180 degrees. So we can make an equation using that. So 90 plus 25 plus A, this right here will be angle A, equals 180 degrees. And so A would be 65 degrees. And now using the linear pair postulate, you can solve for dBF. So 65 plus, we'll call this C, equals 180. And C ends up being 115. So that means the measure of angle dBF is equal to 115 degrees. That's it. Thank you.